We'll see.
Okay.
In the studio, well, not in the studio, but on our TV at supertalk.fm/watch is the good Dr. Mark Horne. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
I was going to wear my bow tie, but I didn't do it. So I don't think I've had a bow tie on since First Communion. So that's been quite a while ago.
Stay out of the way. They're so much cleaner and nicer than the long ones in that.
Well,
sense.
that's true. Now, do you tie your own, or do you have
Absolutely.
that clip? You tie your own. I've never gotten that far.
Absolutely. I do without a mirror.
Just one hand, both hands.
Oh, it takes two.
It takes two. The president of Mississippi State Medical Association, and we have some. Do you hear that audio crackling in there, sir? But we'll march on with it.
I do, but I don't. Yeah, I'm in a quiet room with my headphones on, so I don't know.
That's okay. That's all right. We want to hear what you have to say more than the quality of the volume itself, but this is an important election tomorrow. And by all polls that we have, as we have a majority of Mississippians who are going to probably already have voted in the affirmative for marijuana. It just depends on how they want to have it established in our state. From the president of the Mississippi State Medical Association, what's your words on this?
65 and 65A are driven by compassion. We know that we have patients and our friends and neighbors in our state who have suffering and needs to alleviate that suffering. Mm-hmm. It is the hope of so many who are voting for 65, based on this compassion, that they will help them. I think certainly in the world that I live in and the practice of medicine, and I suspect all of us who are adults and have been around long enough, we know that while compassion is so important to our humanity, we should not allow our emotions and our compassion to drive very important decisions, whether they're financial decisions, personal decisions, and certainly not these political and medical decisions. Political because they're placing this in our Constitution in a way that it's nearly impossible to change. That's a danger. That's a tremendous danger. And then from the medical side, they're stepping into my world and the world of the over 5,000 physicians throughout the state that we represent and saying, hey, we know how to practice medicine. The answer is no, they don't. I was looking at some information just last evening. Someone's looked at Mississippi hospital discharges for the past 3 years, from 2016 through 2019. Did you know that in those years with non-legal marijuana, there were 42,508 hospital discharges that were related to cannabis? And of those, almost 24% had to be placed in an ICU. And that almost a quarter of those were people under 25 years of age, and almost 10% were under 17 years of age. And that's with illegal marijuana. Imagine what it's going to be like when we have orders of magnitude greater access for this very population. And since we know that the younger you are when you begin any intoxicating substance, whether it's alcohol or whether or not it's nicotine, and certainly marijuana, you're more likely to use it long term, and you're more likely to have multiple other drug uses as well. So placing this in the Constitution as liberally as 65 does is not compassionate. It's not wise. It's driven by the emotion rather than facts and really trying to make the best decision.
Just trying to appeal to the better sense of people and to their responsible side, no matter how young they are, to the youngest of voters, is that this is very dangerous to put into the Constitution for you. Now, if you're 18 or 19 or 20 years old, and you're beginning your family, and you think, well, that's the last thing on your mind, thinking about family and responsibilities, and it's hard for me to get across to you, and I doubt very seriously if I'll come through, that think about your kid when he or she is 10, 12, 13, 14 years old. Because by then, that'll be 13 or 14 years from now or longer. And if we go by what happened in other states, you are right, Dr. Horne, the use of illegal, I think I saw a stat here, 2014 to 2017. And this is in Mississippi. 234,000, or about 9.6% of all Mississippians aged 12 and older, reported past year cannabis use. In every other state, with recreational and medical, it has increased dramatically from where it was prior to them legalizing marijuana, either medical or recreational. Your thoughts?
Well, that's exactly true. And we know that when you start younger, you're much more likely to use it more over a longer period of time. Another longitudinal study was looking at 44.7% of people who used cannabis long term. Much more likely to do that if you start when you're younger, by the way. So almost half of those people had other drug abuse issues, illicit drug abuse issues. So when people say it's not a gateway, it's not addictive in the traditional sense of, say, an opiate, where you have withdrawal. But it is certainly psychologically addictive. It certainly leads to other drug abuses, and we simply don't need it. The way it's designed in 65 is designed to be backdoor recreational marijuana. No one, for anything remotely resembling medical uses, could even remotely use the amount that you're going to be allowed in 65. And then, to make things even worse than the non-medical side, the political side, they insulate themselves. They clearly designed it to be a business venture. They're making so they never pay taxes. They don't get subject to zoning regulations. No one can, the legislature, they're completely isolated and insulated from the legislature. So the legislature in the future, when we see that things need to be changed, they can't be changed. Not with anything resembling a normal process. It would take millions of dollars in years.
I think that's going to hard hit people. I mean, look, if you and I had $6 million in a marketing experts out there, we can make Whistler's mother a sex symbol. I mean, it's if you've got that kind of money, you can do that. And what these people have done through their brochures, their slick brochures, through their advertisement, radio, television, billboards, where it happens to be, is this is the greatest thing in the world, number one. And number two, the slimiest people in the world ever created, it reminds me of Donald Trump a little bit in the character assassination, is the Mississippi legislature. And they don't trust the legislature, and that's been one of the tactics, too, that you do not want to put this in the hands of the state legislature. Well, the legislature is elected by the people.
That's us. If we don't like our legislature, run for the legislature and do it differently. Mm-hmm. But don't tell me this distrust of the legislature is a distrust of government as a whole, and it plays into the hands of people who want to destroy our government, which will destroy society as a whole. We're off the path of marijuana per se, but this distrust of the legislative process. The legislative process is slow, it's difficult, and it's necessary for it to be that way, for it to be thoughtful and for it to be appropriate and come to good decisions over time. It is not compassionate to do the wrong thing, and 65 is the wrong thing for Mississippi.
65 is the wrong thing. What we are saying here, what I've said, and because it's the reality, if it passes, and I don't know how many more times we could say this, but again, if we reached a few people by saying it, I want to make sure we do it. That if you go into the polling booths and you understand, it says vote for both, vote for both or against both, but where it says vote for against both, vote there, fill in that bubble. Then on the bottom of that, should you lose that vote, on the bottom of that, then vote for 65A. 65A. In case you do lose that. 65A will be the one that goes to the state legislature, and it will implement. They have to. I want to continue this. Can we do this in a moment or two? I'll hold on for a moment, and we'll get back with Dr. Mark Horne. We have the good Dr. Mark Horne joining us, President of Mississippi State Medical Association. And hopefully, since we moved over to the radio only, the quality will be a little bit better. You there now, sir?
I am. Is this better?
Oh, man, this is good. I can actually hear what you're saying. And for the large number of people who give us input on platforms, right, Perez? We heard you.
Thanks.
Yeah, we heard you. I have a note here. It says more than 42,000 hospitalizations related to marijuana between 2016 and 19. 42,000. 255 infants born were affected because of maternal marijuana abuse. High correlation of mental health issues among those hospitalized. We have everybody out there who's saying that they are compassionate. want to bring marijuana not to young people, not to people who don't need it, not for recreational purposes, but to those, and apparently that's why all these people signed the petition, to people who cannot find other methods to alleviate their pain. And we've gone crazy on this thing.
Yeah, it's not compassionate. And this is with illegal, difficult to get marijuana of likely lower quality. So in medical marijuana, and under 65, you're going to have extraordinarily high quality, extraordinarily high THC content available in gummies and brownies and cookies and in concentrates. And with this poorer quality, illegally obtained, you had 42,508 hospitalizations over a 3-year period. As you said, infants affected. And shockingly, about 10% of these 42,500 admissions were to people 17 and under in the pediatric age group. That's the very age group that is nearly certain to develop cannabis use disorder and to develop additional drug habits. So, and this is with it hard to get. Well, imagine what it's going to be like when it's easy to get. Very easy to get.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that we're just begging people, look, if you put something this caustic, something this dangerous on the streets of Mississippi, we would do that with anything else from dynamite to a, Drano. We make sure that it's cautious. We talk about loaded guns or guns at home. You're putting this in. The only thing 65A does is adds those protections and the ability to change it. I've had more people on the ceasefire this morning to ask me what's the difference, because apparently some people are just coming into just getting into the story to find out they've got to vote on this and they don't know. The 65 makes it puts it into the Constitution. 65 was formed, put together, pushed, advertised, lobbied, and everything else by marijuana growers and people, for the most part, who came to the table saying that they wanted to compassionately bring this to people with terminal diseases and other illnesses that cannot be cured in other methods. But for the most part, people like Joel Baumgar, state representative, has put in, apparently, reportedly, over $1 million. There are people in Washington, D.C., there are a lot of people outside the state that have put in nearly $5 or $6 million to this effort. And once it's put into the Constitution and you vote on it, you cannot change it. You can go bitch to your mayor all the way up to the governor. They can't change it. It is in the Constitution. If you all of a sudden do not like the fact that there are gummy bears on the streets, that there are more joints in the house that are not being used, that the caregiver has misused it, all of these stories coming up, hospital rates have continued to increase, whatever it happens to be, and you said we have enough of this, you can't change it. The other part of this with 65 is that pot shops can locate anywhere in your city, and you can't stop them. And you cannot tell them how many could be in your community.
Well, your community can't opt out either.
No.
And when other parts of the country, states nearly always allow local communities to opt out. You cannot opt out in Mississippi. Every county, every city, every community in the state will be subject to this. And this is we've talked before about how this puts the only product in the Constitution. This is the only business plan that I know of that will be in the Constitution. Yeah. 65 is a business plan to maximize business and maximize profit. That's what it is. It's carefully written to remove all impediments. So government is told to stand down. The legislature stand down. You can't have anything to do with this. Our elected representatives can have nothing to do in restricting it. They co-opt, they Shanghai one of our state agencies, one of our most important ones, I might say, the Department of Health, they enlist them as slave labor for their business plan. And then they enshrine their business plan in the Constitution of our state. How dystopian do you have to be? I am compassionate about my patients. Mm-hmm. I want to take care of my patients. I can see that there are some roles potentially for marijuana that's being carefully and appropriately researched and narrowly tailored 65 is the opposite of narrow tailoring. It's wide open. It's the Wild West, and it provides massive amounts of marijuana to anybody with any problem, anybody who has any ache, any pain, any stress, any problem that they think might benefit from the use of marijuana can go to a physician, and I assure you there are those in my profession who will do this for the money. And thankfully, they are a very small number, but you only need a small number. And they will write them for anything that ails them in life, and you can get up to 300 joints a month for you and for those who might pilfer them in the house. And I just can't imagine how this is compassionate care. 65A allows the legislature in. 65A says we will take care of those who are most in need, and we will do so in a gradual, thoughtful way. And we will not bypass all government controls.
Well, the other thing, too, is we've never seen something like it. Most other states are making money out of this. And for people who say that it's going to increase the employment and also add the profits could go to the general fund or go to schools, it does not. The money goes into the Department of Health. They cannot spend it for anything other than supporting the drug industry itself, which, man, you talk about a sweetheart deal. I don't think there were people in the mafia that could have cut a better deal.
And that's the amazing thing. Not only did they bypass our legislative process, they co-opted our state agencies for their business plan.
Well, let me take it one step farther. They got you, me, and everybody else in the state to loan them the money through the rainy day fund of $2.5 million to get their own business started, and I've never heard of that in my life.
It's the craziest thing, and it holds well because they wrap it in terms of compassion. And tell everybody who doesn't believe in it that they're non-compassionate.
Yeah.
They have no compassion. So they've taken people like me who practices internal medicine and hospice and palliative medicine, for whom this is a daily part of my life, and they tell me I'm not compassionate if I don't agree with their profit motive. That's really bizarre. I was talking to one of my colleagues, a hematologist, oncologist, who also does hospice and palliative medicine, 2 days ago. And this person was telling me that they've had patients use marijuana with some frequency. And rarely has it been this effective. It's not the panacea. It's not this magical thing that some people seem to make it out to be. Does it help some people? Yes. Do we know how? Do we know what dose? Do we know what frequency? No. Do we need to study it? Absolutely. Mississippi is well positioned to study it. Mm-hmm. We have the Academic Medical Center. We have Ole Miss, and they grow it. We can figure this out. But 65 is a dystopian novel that has been written, and we're going to live it, and it's going to be horrible.
I think it's going to be the epitome of be careful what you pray for. You might get it. The other part of that is that the health department has no idea how they're going to implement this, and they're mandated to do so, one way or the other. They have to do it because it is in the Constitution. And there are, lawsuits that will be filed against the state legislature or anybody else if it's not implemented and implemented on time. And they have no idea, especially now in the world of COVID, what in the world they're going to be able to do, how they're going to do this.
Well, the next time we have a major public health issue in the state that we really need the Department of Health the Mississippi State Department of Health, we need them to focus on that. If they're distracted and focused on marijuana, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle our public health issues? That's one of the worst parts. There's so many bad parts of 65. It's hard to pick out what part.
I agree with you.
Worst.
Hopefully people will come to some sense tomorrow. Dr. Horne, thank you, sir. Appreciate it very, very much. President of the Mississippi State Medical Association. Can you imagine this? Shops opening around the corner, as many as they want to. Any place a pharmacy is able to open, one of these shops can open. Where you go to buy, some doctor in telecommunications says, yeah, I'm going to give you a certificate. And your certificate is for pain or stress. And I'm going to write it for you. You could go by this store. You could shop for any pain pill you wanted to, up to the limit of the monetary value. It's about what's ready to happen in our state.